Kim said, this is a sold-out event, and we had to start saying no to people about midweek. And that's delightful, and I know that a big part of that is because so many people wanted to hear the speakers who were here, as well as having the opportunity to network in the way that we will today. And so my next job is to introduce a man who really needs no introduction. I'm going to keep it short and sweet, because I know that's how he prefers his introduction. So he's a Wired magazine contributing editor, he's a best-selling sci-fi author, he's an all-round AR guru, and we're delighted that he's come here to speak to us today. So please join me in welcoming Bruce Sterling.
Thanks for that introduction. Very happy to be here in Ontario. Well, any gig that opens with a Feynman joke. I'd say a very brainy crowd, actually. So yeah, this is me. I'm Bruce Sterling, journalist, author, blogger. Do a lot of augmented reality coverage on my blog, got an augmented reality category on the old blog there. And this is a point cloud portrait of me, which is just like awesome and amazing. So I like said this to my children. They're like, "Dad, you're not that old and wrinkly." But you know, the voxels are the size of a ham sandwich on this. This is the device that made this point cloud portrait. It's a pretty much common regard in DSLR camera, and a Kinect, literally lashed together with rubber bands. So what's happening here? Well, you got the art school, tech art class guys dropping by, and they've actually hot-wired their Kinect to take 3D portraits, right? And so, I've got a camera in my pocket, I'm a journalist, so I'm like returning fire. So, what's happening here? Well, these are the two grand themes of my speech. The takeaway, really. Number one, registration. And number two, lash-ups with clumsy rubber bands. So, this is like the device that created this portrait, which I like so much I may put it on the back cover of a book. This is how I feel when I get up in the morning. It's like actually captured my soul in some important way. And it's augmented and it's kind of cool, and it's got like this awesome new aesthetic glitch core thing going on. Super 2012 looking picture. There's an entire film of this. It's part of a documentary. It's all been recorded. It's about to be released. But this is the the technological underpinnings of that image, and they're trying to solve the registration problem. Obviously, they didn't solve it very well because the points are a cloud, but the cloud's pretty jagged. And it was not purpose-built. I mean, it's literally two devices which have been mashed up and they're held together with these rubber bands. So, what's augmented reality? Well, it's something that gets called augmented and it has an Augie floating around on it. So, here's Saul. That's what population's seen a lot of this, tons of it on my blog and so forth. But, how do you define it? Well, I'm a big fan of Ronald Azuma. Here I am name dropping my acquaintance with the luminaries of the industry. So that's Dr. Azuma there. And he says it's three things. He says it combines the real and the virtual, and that it's interactive in real time, and that it's registered in 3D. So, who does that? Well, here's the original guys. So, being a science fiction writer, I was like very keen on augmented reality, and I've basically been waiting for this thing to break since 1991 when I first heard the term and thought, gosh, what a cool pair of buzzwords, augmenting reality. I like this even better than virtual reality. So I was thrilled when the AR Consortium showed up, and there's like an entire group of guys willing to declare that they actually do augmented reality, and they're going to start up a business and get venture capital and take it to the wall, and this is like 2009. So immediately my ears, popped up. I mean, I'm so happy to see it happen, and these are sort of the brave pioneers of the industry. Artists, critics, sci-fi writers. Of course, we love augmented reality. Who can't love augmented reality? But that's not the same as actually trying to build some and sell it and get the population to use it and just take it to the masses and break it out of the labs and move from research and development and actually do this segue from the mystical sci-fi world of imaginary objects and services into real objects and services that really take place. So what is it that these guys actually do? Them and their pals, and some of the new hires who kind of rushed in after the original 2009. Not that there's anything wrong with that. The pioneers have to take a lot of arrows, and here come the sponsors of the ARE event in California, most recent one. A lot of guys, fun event, love these guys. What are they doing? Well, they're doing stuff which is, number one, sort of kind of registered. Not super registered, but GPS levels of registered. Sometimes, registered within an error of, a couple of kilometers. They're registered, sort of. And number two, there's some kind of combination of the real and the virtual. Commonly, there's just some kind of little signal from the virtual to the real, like a cartoon or an icon, or maybe just a little red light. Nothing too elaborate, nothing that you would physically confuse with the virtual. Not a virtuality that's so accurate that it looks real, but the 50-yard line stripe or some other similar kind of thing. And number three, it is interactive in real time, but not all that interactive. It reacts to people kind of sooner or later. There's various ways to kind of get a grip on it. Maybe it reacts to a lot of people. It may be socially based. Maybe a bunch of users are helping you build a database that has all the stuff in it. So, it's not really in the Azuma definition of AR, which is still kind of ahead of us and the kind of gold standard of what people are trying to technically achieve. So, what happened to these guys? Well, there they are. I don't know if you're futurist or not. This is the canonical Gartner hype cycle here. Loving the Gartner hype cycle. Latest one, just blogged it, some on the All-Wired blog. Every year these Gartner guys haul these suckers out, and they try to fit all this hardware stuff onto their imaginary cycle there. The technology triggered the peak of inflated expectations, which was about 2009. And you can write an article about augmented reality, everybody's never heard of it. Then the trough of disillusionment, which is when people always realize, wait a minute, it's not exactly what they said. And it's actually used for different purposes than that sci-fi writer said it would be. Okay, I wrote a lot of stories about augmented reality. Some of them won awards. People are like, I read a story about it. I'm bringing it out here in a box. It's never what I said. Never is it what I said. The things I was discussing about augmented reality like the early 90s bear very little relationship to the actual industry that's emerged. They just don't. They're about as similar as Jules Verne's submarine and a modern nuclear submarine. They're not the same, and that's not the purpose. But here's augmented reality. This would be you. On the slope to hell. It's all downhill from here, okay? This is the hard slog now. This is where we separate the men from the boys, and the women from the permanent graduate students. There they go. Down the hill, where virtual worlds are right now. You remember them? Virtual worlds. Ooh, the horror of being involved in virtual. And then somewhere over here, it's like GPS units, where it's completely commercialized. They're all cutting each other's throats now. But everybody knows what they're for, right? I could go on about this thing all year, literally. I'm familiar with the Internet of Things, love these guys. As a guy who's a trend splitter, fiction guy, this is my complete métier here. But, this is where you are. In fact, we're probably down to about right here right now, but this trend is all in this direction. So, what became of these guys? These guys here. Yeah, them. Okay, these are the pioneers. The guys appeared at the peak. They're really seeding it. Layar, Matayo, Zugra, N13, Tanchdat, Widreams, Augmento, Paul Crowder, love these guys. Super interesting bunch of guys. never was connected to an industry I liked more. And now they show up at augmented reality event, and their basic message is, please stop poisoning us with inflated sci-fi style expectations. We're real businesses. Some of us have been at it for a decade. We do real things. We can supply actual services. They're not super Ronald DeZuma style AR where everything's perfectly registered, totally interactive in real time. But they're real things that really make sense to people, and we can do them, and we really refined our technology here, and please stop putting us into the magic box and allow us to make some money doing the things we actually do. And my attitude toward that is very sympathetic. I think that's true, right? So LAR, beloved firm, these Dutch swashbucklers, dote on these guys. Basically, they found out that interactive paper is what it's about. I mean, they kind of came out of nowhere, inspired by their guru, Tomi Ahonen, the Mobile Monday scene in Amsterdam, very like your scene here in Ontario, plenty of state support, guys networking all the time, nobody networks like the Dutch, bunch of guys get in the room, it's like, hey man, we can seize this opportunity, we're gonna drag this software out of the lab, we're SPRX Mobile, we're a social software, mobile software company, but here's this fantastic opportunity. We got means, we got motives. We can scare up some venture funding here. They pick up about 12 million. They charge out there. Okay, we don't know what the hell's going to make money. Let's just start throwing spaghetti at the wall. Real estate guys, pop up this, release 1.0, get it out there fast, cheap. They're doing everything by the kind of VC book. And now, 4 years later, they decided that it's about interactive paper. It's about image recognition in the print media and kind of tagging video onto recognizable piece of paper, newspaper, magazine things. Digitizing newspaper magazines like a value add to new Dutch newspapers and magazines. That's what pays them. They're looking out in the market, trying to pitchfork the shareholders off their back. Can't do the burn rate forever, it's been 4 years. Interactive paper is LAR, the interactive paper company. I hope they survive. Some of the founders just left. That's the rumor. I've heard it. I haven't heard it. I'm a journalist. I never say it's true unless I've got at least 2 guys lying to me about it. But that's the niche they found. And that's a real niche. I mean, interactive paper. Zugara, just copyrighted, patented their dressing gown situation. They're all about putting augmented clothing on people in dressing room situations. They went out, did it, okay, but that's not augmented reality in the sort of grand sense. That's a dressing room app, but they got it sort of summed up. They really want to do it, and they're ready to go to court now. Tanch Dot, off in the Japanese Galapagos, doing whatever it is people do in Japan, never bleeds out. Wide Dreams, kiosks, love these guys. Wide Dreams, Portuguese AR company, super inventive bunch of guys. It's all about installations with them. They do banks. Go into the bank and say, okay, let's have an interactive space here in your bank foyer. We'll give you robots. And kiosks, they're walls. They'll just instrument the space for the bank. So you step into the bank, it's wow, it's so fantastic in here. I don't even realize the bank's robbing me. But but they're in this niche, and they're in Brazil and Portugal, and they're doing it, but it's again not what you would have expected an augmented reality thing to be. It's basically bank foyer, I don't know, interactive design, whatever it is, super interesting, Augmento, gaming company, so forth. Much less they are, the special effects are less special, more like visual services, mobile software applications, consumer computer vision applications. I mean, calling it AR actually gets in the way of supplying the object and service and getting paid for it. And I know that's true. And I'm sympathetic with people who want to do that. And I think that's kind of what this is about. This trip to hell I was looking at, yeah, there you go. I mean, somewhere over here is an area that's basically consumer computer vision applications. Interactive paper, real spaces, and for a startup team, I mean, for people in the computer industry, considering the size of these little ateliers, these little startup guys, some just one-man operations, 10, a dozen, 24. There's no augmented reality Facebook. None of them have kind of like broken out of the corral, taken over the world, giant 3D behemoth. That hasn't happened yet. But they're all still alive. There is no AR Facebook, but not even one of those 2009 companies has folded or been acquired. They're all, they're in there pitching. And after 4 years in the VR space, which is full of piranhas and sharks, that's kind of amazing. So, what's the way out of that? I mean, you've got this problem with registration, things that register very well, and you've also got this problem with mashups, where the object and services that you're trying to give to the public are based on systems that were not purpose designed for that. They're all hacks, they're all lash-ups. Like, okay, AR, they're mobile applications. In theory, it's all about this guy, the head-mounted display. And it's been about this guy for a long time, like a really long time. Like a lot longer time than people who don't read sci-fi would realize. But this is a purpose-built, fully registered AR device. And it's not really good for anything else. I just saw this at NASA, by the way. Take a pic of this. It's in a museum vitrine, and a museum vitrine in the NASA Ames research lab tourist area. This is their museum shop. So this is like head-mounted NASA style, awesome, I don't know what this, Cold War era, super military. But this is basically Google Glass, circa, I don't know what, 1962, I would guess. I don't know, maybe 1952. If it's the NSA, it might have been 1948. I don't know. But that's what people have been expecting a long time. I love that idea. In my sci-fi stories, it's all about the head mounts. I mean, there are already head mounts around, but my augmented reality things like, oh yeah, head mounted specs. They're just like on your head, and you look through and you like see cool things. And I'm like, tried them. I even do VR stuff. I love VR stuff. This isn't old VR stuff. 100% contemporary VR. It's like, maybe 11 months ago. That's me wearing the same shoes, ladies and gentlemen. The very same shoes that I'm wearing in this thing. So here's like a VR guy. He's got like the no kidding VR. It's like the head-mounted immersive thing. Got a handheld device. Sells it to Hollywood. That's his niche. He's an entrepreneur guy. People come in and they do the sets for like Iron Man. And they just like 3D them now. And then you walk in, you put on the set, and the director walks around at the set before the set's built. And he said, oh wait, I don't like that wall. That wall should be over here, right? Hollywood niche. He's an LA guy. But that's his business model, right? He's doing VR, but it's VR in the service of Hollywood. And specifically VR in the service of like an FX-drenched Hollywood. Not popular VR. Nobody walks around in the street with these things on. But it's still there, and it's like a technology waiting to happen. It's like somewhere in the hell curve. It never really went away. It's just kind of in the trough of disillusionment. Unlike but super difficult technology. I got sick wearing this. Got simulator sickness. Like the second time I've had it. Really, you're walking around completely disoriented. The ear things don't map to what you're seeing. Yeah, I didn't throw up, but I was sweating. So I love these, but I'm very aware of their limitations. I'm kind of a big skeptic about them. The head mounts just don't work. So let's talk business, shall we? I know we got some business people in the audience. Okay, I'm going to quote my favorite business analyst, Tomi Ahonen. Tomi Ahonen, I don't know if you've heard of him, ex-Nokia guy, lives in Hong Kong, very busy guy, Tomi. He's kind of the guru of AR, the Amsterdam tech art scene, big AR fan, but basically a mobile business analyst. Why is AR on mobile? Look at this freaking ray here. 1999. I was alive back then, having a pretty good time. Thought I was pretty high tech. Look at this. The number of mobile, well, billions of them. Billions. If we had billions of head-mounted devices, AR would have taken over the world. We don't have that. We got billions of little like screen things in our hands. Billions. Trillion-dollar industry, world's fastest trillion-dollar industry, crushing everything. Where? Everywhere. Africa. Look at this. Per capita, they're all over the place. These are his stats, by the way. I'm just cutting and pasting, one of Tomi's self-published books here. super guy. But you can't be in the mobile software industry and not read what this guy has to say. He was the first guy to tell me that Nokia was dying. I didn't believe it. Nokia? But they're bigger than... Okay, they're all over the world. Why, I've got a Nokia myself. They can't possibly be in trouble. He knew, all right? He knew. It's a terrible story. It's the worst business collapse in the history of technology. I've never seen anything like this Nokia thing. You know, it's epic. Tolstoy would be beckered by what's happening to Nokia. I don't even know how to describe it. The state of that collapse, and worse is coming for them. Common usage of phone features. Okay, we've got like 1 billion of these things. They're all over the place. Everybody knows how to make money. Carlos Slim, richest guy in the world. They're all, how could they not? Okay, you see augmented reality anywhere in these phone features? Look at the, just a smorgasbord. This is like a riot of stuff going on. SMSs, voice calls, cameras, sort of. I mean, AR is like some small thing out of this. Okay, now, there's a great thing about this. You got these devices, they're round, they're cheap, they've got software developer kits, APIs, you can do stuff with them. The downside is you get lost in the mess. Because, you're just basically using your rubber bands and tying yourself into this gigantic set of features. Hey, we're another one. Come use your device to augment stuff. Well, why? Well, it wasn't purpose-built to augment anything. It doesn't really register very well. I mean, they're not built to register stuff. They're built with GPS, which is like global scale registers. There's never been a mobile device purposely built to augment stuff with. There's no range finders in there. There's kind of little Kinect style things that you would need. It's not AR purpose-built hardware. You got chip guys who like AR, like Qualcomm, Intel. They're like, okay, it's very processing intensive. We can sew more silicon this way. But they don't actually build AR devices. Nobody's ever brought out the Qualcomm AR Special, right? Because it's about SMS. That's where the cash is. SMS is the biggest medium in the world. Colossal. I mean, these are stats. Well collected by our man, Tony. And what's this about? Well, this is Tony's most dramatic and least scientific thing, the famous Tomia home in Cliff. And there's a lot of wealth in the handheld mobile business, but it is a bloodbath out there. Companies die really fast, faster than AR companies die. AR companies don't even die. They just kind of wander around sipping VC money, and eventually sort of kind of find something that kind of more or less pays for a while. But Siemens, Motorola, Palm, Nokia, Windows Mobile, and Canada's beloved RIM BlackBerry all went off this cliff. They lost market share very rapidly, very suddenly, fatally, and none of them turned it around, no matter how many brilliant people they had reinventing new business models or trying to come up with some sexy new version. Google ate Motorola, Android slaughtered Nokia, didn't just put it into a niche, cut the legs out from under it. And you're out there in the mobile space, you're rubber band tied to some particular handheld device, and the cliff is ahead. The cliff is much worse than the trough of disillusionment. The trough of disillusionment is just people getting a little bored. The cliff is companies vanishing, thousands of people being fired, Finland in mourning, right? It's amazing. There aren't other industries where this cliff happens, and why do they collapse? They got tons of money, hundreds of millions of users, very clever engineers, awesome software, they do incredible things. Why do they just plain go away? Well, people speculate about it. It might be the replacement cycle, because buying a new one every 18 months was kind of a faddish industry. Down to 11 months now. People just buy them, throw them out like potato chips. The dealerships have a lot of influence over the industry. They can sort of pick and choose what they're going to retail. They decide, oh, well, Blackberries, they're boring. They're last year's thing. They just don't reach the public through the dealerships. The carriers are evil. Everybody knows, everybody fears the carriers. The carriers are at war ever since Apple humiliated them with the iPhone. They've got a chokehold over the industry. They can make other people dance to their tune. They don't really innovate at all. They just sue people, throttle people. You know, when Microsoft decided to ally itself with Skype, the carriers decided to destroy Windows Mobile. Wonder why Windows has a 1% market share? It's freaking Windows. You know, and on the desktop world, they're a monopoly. You know, in the mobile world, the carriers cut their throats in public. They can't get anywhere because they bought Skype, and Skype is a menace to carrier revenues. Okay, you know, this is like odd stuff for sci-fi writer to be into. I wouldn't know it if I wasn't like a beloved fan of your industry. But this is the ugly underside of the fact that you're attacked with rubber bands to these bandits. You know, and that's the world in which people who do mobile software have to exist. I mean, if you're networking about stuff, these are the crises. It's like, you know, your Halloween skeleton standing here. And you know, number 4, a bust in design can be fatal in the business because, you know, you're like, okay, well, we're in BlackBerry and like, the little buttons aren't sexy anymore. We better like come up with this buttonless thing. Okay, it might take 3 years to get that happening, and the replacement cycles eat your lunch by that time. By the time you like come out with a killer object, but just your pricing is shared, you've lost your user base, and there's just no way to scrabble your way back. And you're in midair over the cliff like Wile E. Coyote, and your brilliant object just can't get traction anymore. I mean, those are the theories. I mean, I don't know what it happens, but it does happen. And it happens. It's very sad and terrible that it happens. Actually, I know people at Nokia. Love those guys. Very imaginative, super engineers. Every technical virtue you would want to have. Man, Apple hit them from the top. Google Android hit it from the bottom. They were just sent to a tailspin. They were over. So, you know, people have known this a long time. This is LAR in 2009. Super hip bunch of guys, LAR. They know about the hype cycle. They're like aware of this. They were like struggling. They're like looking at all these things. It's like, okay, some of these things are going to work and some of them don't. Like barcodes are great and like markerless AR is like coming up. Okay, they're basically kind of a markerless AR company now. They're doing image recognition on 2-dimensional objects on paper because that's the kind of markerless AR that actually works. It's flat. You know, the registration's not really a problem. You can put a video on top of it. People like little videos. So they're kind of installing videos in magazines with LAR. They kind of finally found something. But they were like working on a lot of these. You know, they were hip. I mean, they knew it. And the things that I was telling them, there are things they already knew in 2009, and that did not help them. Well, you know, they nevertheless ended up in the situation they're ending up. You know, and they're still a functional company. They are, you know, they may even become a pretty big media company. They're doing the wise thing. There we go. Yep. Can't separate them out of the noise. Too many lash ups. Registration very hard. Okay, it's the typical computer science lab view of augmented reality. Here we are looking at like various kinds of augmented reality. Like, you know, these boundaries are hard. Okay, the boundaries matter less to consumers than they do to computer scientists and, you know, design theorists, guys. The boundaries are of super interest. They're like technically very interesting. The boundaries are like where the rubber meets the road when it comes to creating hardware and writing software. From the point of view of the public, they're not really aware of the boundaries. In fact, the boundaries between virtuality and actuality are disappearing in practice. I mean, here's an example of how difficult it is. Okay, here's like the popular guys watching TV movies down at the bottom. Okay, once you got an image, you can dress it up. Like graphically, you can do awesome stuff with it. Going out into the 3 dimensions to find stuff is this top guy. This is registration. These guys are like wearing patches and patches and patches of registration. So, you know, this is what it's like to really augment stuff. And then this is sort of what the public's used to. Yeah, computer graphics, man. Like, let's mess with reality. Okay, that's like really real, like snake theory stuff on this guy. He's like super augmented, and it's like, it looks like he's really there. It's sort of like great. I mean, once you drag it into the studio and mess with it, do Photoshop or your basic. But, you know, this is sort of computer vision versus what the public's seeing and stuff, kind of expectations of what one can do. Check this thing out. Okay, you're like trying to blur these images, like this guy here. I mean, that's basically, let's see, it's this, it's this. This is a bedroom full of this stuff. You know why it's a bedroom? This is all erotica. Every one of these QR codes has got something racy going on. This is like the honeymoon suite, right? But it doesn't sort of say, look, it's augmented in here. You're just like, hey, baby, let's get between the sheets. Like you and me and our two handheld devices. It's a real room, okay? I didn't make it up. It's not like something out of a sci-fi novel. It's existent. It's on the curtains. There's like furniture designer. And I was like, yeah, I like the way things look in, sort of bad computer games. I think I'll just like make a chair. Okay, there's no augmentation going on here. Everything you're seeing here is entirely analog. But this is sort of the popular expectation of like the crossing of these boundaries, right? I mean, this chair is a thing that's crossed this boundary. The chair makes no sense unless you understand computer graphics. But everybody does. Everybody's seen 8-bit computer graphics. Everybody knows what voxels are. They're like, oh, how cute. Like we just got like a voxelated chair. It's a thing that came out of the computer graphics world. It's just sitting there as an analog artifact. New aesthetic, as James Bridle likes to call it. It's being dragged from one to the other. Nobody's asking augmentations permission to do this. This is what our culture's doing. We're just used to seeing augmentations. We'll sleep in them. We'll sit on them. Face bar. Now, it's like social media, except with actual drinking, okay? This is like, I don't know, some third world place where Sub can't sue them. But, expect to see a lot of this. I mean, really expect to see a lot. Just like, why not? Why draw these artificial distinctions? Like, me and my Facebook pals are all going out for a drink. Let's go to the face bar. Why not? And they're in there with their handheld devices. I mean, they've got beer, but they're still on Facebook. They're just like on Facebook in the same room. Obviously. It's like, it's great. I get to actually kiss her as opposed to like sending her sexting messages, whatever. I mean, after a long night at face bar, this is your destination. And, nobody sort of stops and asks Ronald DeZuma, like, exactly how do you academically classify a thing like this? It's just emergent human experience in contemporary techno-social situation. That's what's happening. Mobile is everywhere, and the boundaries are breaking everywhere. Society won't wait when it comes to lashing the real and the augmented together. They don't need your rubber bands in particular. They kind of got their own rubber bands. They got steel chains, okay? They got all kinds of means and methods to make this transition and to blur it and to enjoy blurring and to not even realize that it's been blurred. We're just making computer graphics in parts of real 3D spaces. We are combining the real and the virtual. It is active in real time. It's not interactive, but people really do it. They kind of actually sit in the chairs, actually sleep in the beds, actually go to the face bars. And it's in 3D space because it's just in actual reality. It's not interactive and it's not really augmented, but that's not something that the population really stops to ask. It's something that like developers ask or the theorists ask. It's not something that the population really concerns themselves with. Here's an awesome piece of work. I want to talk about some new aesthetic mashup stuff. Korean car company hires, graphics company. They come in, these pixels are all foam core, and they're on little pistons. It's a gigantic steampunk augmented pixelated reality, and it animates in real time. You can like send GIFs wandering across this wall. The whole wall's been mechanized as a giant mechanical display screen with foam core pixels. For Hyundai, big trade show. Like, let's blow them off their, rockers here, like Hyundai, or like, a car company. We're like, awesome. It's like it's as if the walls, those bricks over there started seething in and out, like pixels. You can see the videos of these. Like, I put it on my own blog. Amazing looking thing. Almost completely mechanical. It'll dance. You can put cartoon characters on it. It's solid. So much fun. I love that. Okay, here's my first example I've ever seen of augmented reality malware. These are guys, they're actually military guys. Okay, check this out. This is so evil and bad. This guy, thank goodness this hasn't been released in a while, but everything the military is building is getting out there. I mean, oh gosh, flame, don't even get me started. So this is an augmented reality attack. You take over the guy's cell phone. He's like wandering around. You turn on the picture thing. It just takes surreptitious pictures of whatever he is. And then build like a 3D augmentation of the room, right? And then you just move that onto your desktop machine. And you look around in his office to see if there's anything in there you can swipe. It just automatically builds a 3D registered version of his room. And the intention is to like find a check on the desktop or whatever, you know, leftover business cards. It's spyware, right? It's like augmented spyware. You don't have to go through all the millions of pictures you're taking off this guy's slave handheld. You just like use the slave handheld, build an augmentation, and you know, import it into your own machine for criminal or espionage purposes. Human underside, kind of sitting there waiting. You know, and you could bet that a guy who's using this isn't going to be saying, hey, wow, you know, the registration's really tight in this application. No, you know, he's going to be a professional thief like other kinds of professional computer crime thieves. You know, it's a coming of age when the criminal underground starts exploiting your technology. Because they do. I mean, they're stakeholders like everybody else. Probably got a couple of criminals in the audience right now, statistically speaking. Especially at a Bruce Sterling appearance, you know, a guy who wrote Hacker Crackdown back in the day. A lot of hacker fans. They get fan mail from criminals. Oh, Mr. Sterling, you know a lot about computers. Isn't there like some cool way to steal this thing? Well, there are cool ways to steal stuff. I mean, this is a cool way to steal stuff. But in the future, this is like probably a pretty good way to steal stuff. Or at least it's a good way to deal with a torrent of stolen videos that come off some handheld device. You gotta have some kind of filter. They're gonna use a mobile as a spy on somebody. They're so capable and they do so much stuff. You're gonna have to come up with some front end for it. I'm running out of time. Okay, so what comes next? Now what comes next for AR? Well, you know, it hasn't solved its two big problems. It hasn't solved the rubber band lash-up problem, and it hasn't solved the registration problem. Okay, millimeter scale registration, LEAP. There it is, 70 bucks, LEAP, it's supposed to come out later. It's like cool vaporware device here, what does it do? It's like, got a little box there, stick your hands in it. It's gesture recognition. Gesture recognition on a millimeter scale. Super Connect, like a couple of orders of magnitude more accurate than a Connect. Everybody in the business knows this, Intel knows it. It's like a mathematics hack. It's like actually busted the registration problem. Centimeter scale registration, sci-fi idea. My colleague Werner Vinci, big fan of this. This is millimeter scale, sub-millimeter scale registration in a space the size of the top of this podium for whatever reason. And I haven't seen one. I've had colleagues from Wired go out and try them out, but I've never seen one working. But you know, it's just over the horizon. They got 12 million in startup money from some pretty smart Silicon Valley VCs. They're not making it up. There they are. Yes, grasping the cosmos with my tiny $70 whatever. Okay, you know, a lot of Connect hacking. Artists going to be using this. Okay, in the everyday world, people are not going to like grasp the cosmos with it, but they're going to be grasping something. And here come the majors that everybody's been wondering. It's like, well, you remember this guy here? Oh yeah, him, oh yeah, him. Okay, through the trough of disillusionment and all the way to the catwalk of Diane von Furstenberg. There she is. I love this skeptical expression on her face. If you ever hung out with people in the haute couture world, they always look like that when they're confronting a rich client. Oh my God, she's like 50 kilos overweight, and I've got to like dress her up in this. It's just so typical, so great. And this isn't augmented reality. Google Glass, they're very keen not to have it described as augmented reality. It's a heads-up display. It doesn't really register. It's just an Android device with like a little pop-up screen. It doesn't really register stuff in 3 dimensions. It doesn't like bring dancing carnations on a wall. You know, it doesn't really augment. It's an Android that lacks handhelds and responds to voice commands, and it doesn't have buttons, and it doesn't even have a screen. It's just like this, entirely, well, I'll wear one. I spotted one in the wild San Francisco, like woman walking down the street. It's like, hey, that woman's wearing Google Glass, and she's like smiling and wandering past. It's not that weird. It's no weirder than those like absurd Bluetooth things that go in your ears. You could buy one, $1,500 bucks. I'm not going to buy one. I never buy the Alpha rollout. But, I wouldn't mind wearing one. They don't look more ridiculous than I normally look. I'm a little concerned about, the radiation problems of having a cellular device attached to your head over long periods as opposed to, but, everybody worries about that. Nobody ever stops doing it. But it's super interesting to have the majors show up, to have Google sort of like take a step into this space. And Intel. Here's Intel getting ready to do what they call perceptual computing. There's the software developer kit, just came out. What is it about? Well, amazing and magical, yes. Ambient, pervasive, mechanical, projection, backing, gestural interface, gaze interfaces. This is like Intel's excuse to get people to use serious processing on the desktop. They're like, why are these other devices stealing all our chops here? I mean, we're Intel, and we like making really big desktop machines. But our pal Windows is kind of like dying on the vine and not doing anything in the mobile space. And what can we do as Intel to get people to like buy bigger chips? Well, you can put more processing on the desk. I mean, what can you do with personal computing? Well, you can like augment the room. You can like do voice recognition in there, do gesture recognition, perceptual computing. You can sort of address everything that the human body sees or hears. And from Intel's point of view, that's a good idea. It's like, how do we really get heavy iron on the desktop? How do we sell people personal supercomputers? We can really jazz up this space. Okay, that's like the way forward for your industry as I see it. Because you need new platforms. You need like things that are just closer to your own soul. Your problem is that you've got the rubber band problem. You've never had a situation that's like, outside of the lab, you've never had a purpose-built situation where the things that matter most to you technically are valorized in a technical device. There isn't any specialized AR thing. You're always carrying piggyback style on somebody else's hardware. And the fact that the old situation's breaking down offers you the opportunity to find some space there. Maybe in an Intel Samsung device, maybe in one of the majors, maybe Google, Amazon, Apple, Microsoft, or Facebook will bend over backwards to like really help you out. But I don't think so. And my suspicion is that all of those things, all of those industries that we valorize so much, that are worth so much to us, that we spend hours in every day, they're all doomed. Augmented reality isn't doomed, they're doomed. They're all heading for the Hohmann cliff. Facebook, Microsoft, Apple too, as well, the most valuable company on earth. It's beset with hubris. Oh, what does the augmented reality victory condition look like? Well, with sub-millimeter registration, the devices vanish. There's no need to have them. It's a pure experience design play. You're just in a space doing things. Augments appear, they carry out your will. And the ultimate AR platform is an augmented reality made of augmented reality. It's an experience that you build through other experiences. You don't sort of like go in and hit the buttons or stroke the glass or ask the permission of anybody. You're just sort of like in the space having experiences which lead you to other experiences. And that's not an end game. That in itself would be very unstable, very destabilizing. But that seems to me, as a visionary, to be a likely description of something about 30 years from now. Just in a room, in a space, in a street, in a city, where registration rules, and your ability to move your hands, be heard, be seen in a three-dimensional space is what it's all about. And the primary design effort is experience. What does it look like? What does it feel like? What does it see like? What can you do? Not where the front end is, where the API is, how do I suck up to my favorite mobile guy, just a world where augmentation is empowered. Augmentation takes command. And it's not going to take command through any of the systems and operating systems and software structures that we have today. But that probably isn't a problem, because they're just not going to last. We really reached a condition of volcanic instability in these devices. And somewhere on the far side of the volcano is a plain, a plain of fertile development of something or other. But I don't see a world where the road that AR has followed so far continues. I think there's a break. I think there's a break, and I think it looks like the break that Rim BlackBerry got. And that's going to be a little rough, but the trough is ahead. And somewhere beyond the trough, another world. Really one that's as hard for us to describe as today's augmented reality world would have been to describe back in these days. Right? It's hard to imagine as our world is from this state. So thank you for your attention.
Wow. Thank you, Bruce. We've got some time for questions, so I'm going to hand it over to you.
It's great. Yes, sir.
What can we do today, design activity, creative activity, experience design, to prototype or help understand what the future of augmented reality might look like and feel like?
Well, I think it's important to sort of recognize where it is that you're acting in society, and to realize it's not 2009. So you really have to kind of give up some of the buzzwords from 4 or 5 years ago and not exhaust that. And and don't get in the face of the people who are actually doing it, right? If there's somebody in the augmented reality world who actually has a business success, don't scold them for being successful businessmen. Just allow them to go out and pursue this niche that they've got, It's like, let 1,000 flowers bloom then, right? But also be aware that somewhere at the far end of this, the victory condition doesn't look like that. It's just, and it doesn't even look like AR. I mean, in the world I was describing, nobody would call that augmented reality. That would just be reality, and just be sort of like how you got blind, right? It would have the banality of, it wouldn't look like this. It's just sort of trying to look all super sci-fi. It's like, look at the science fiction writer being all digital. There would be a lot more sort of sorted and everyday and kinky like this and this, right? Just kind of augments everywhere and it's to sit on. So the single worst problem your business has is registration, and that's the most obscure thing, but that's like the key to everything. If registration works really great, everything else happens. If you're a technician and you want to help the world of augmented reality, registration, absolutely what it's about. That's the walnut, that's from which everything grows. So, if you want an augmented reality world, you want sub-millimeter scale registration on the largest possible scale. Cities, planets, the solar system, if you can manage it, right? And I go for that, and the rest will sort of trundle along. But the rubber band lash-up problem is a really serious techno-social and political problem. And we're sort of outside of it because, most people in augmented reality companies are the size of the Atelier. But Zugara did patent their dress-up room and sort of went into the legal realm and were immediately attacked by patent trolls. Just like hammered, and 6 lawsuits next week because they suddenly realized there's like money on the table. Right? And so if you go out into that world and you sort of like go up to like Google Android guys and say, oh, by the way, your like Android system and your like head mounts are kind of getting in the way of my golden opportunities to invent a fully registered world, they're not going to look on that kindly, even though Google is a very nice company and really tries not to be evil. That's not their business plan, okay? And Apple, the less said the better. And Microsoft, go ally yourself with them. And join the graveyard of guys who like tried to cozy up to Microsoft, Nokia included. I can't give you very much advice there because it's just like a pit of serpents. It's a bad scene, and getting worse. I mean, the majors are visibly arming themselves. They're buying patents for hundreds of millions of dollars. They're expecting civil war. They all think they're going to rule the world. They're all undercutting one another's business models. This isn't the early days of the internet where you sort of go into the garage, throw a bunch of stuff together online, and expect a friendly public to help you out. They're going to come step on you.
Like the hacker crackdown stuff, the EFF, I'm curious how you balance this sort of quest for perfect registration with the ensuing perfect surveillance in the cloud. Right?
Well,
we register a city.
That's fine, but it's like you raise up terms like surveillance or privacy, and those are political terms. I mean, I'm a journalist, so if I'm surveilling you, that just means I'm finding out things in the public interest. I mean, I'm surveilled if there's somebody I don't like, or if I don't have some way to stop you from doing it. But otherwise, it's transparency, which is another political value that everybody supposedly loves. I mean, it's surveillance if I hate it. If I'm surveilling you, that's great, right? So, you don't balance that, because perfect registration is a technical issue, and surveillance is a techno-social and political issue. It's like saying, how do you justify having a device in your pocket, and also, does it achieve justice? Okay, that's a real issue. Like, yes, my Apple iPhone doesn't have a justice knob. It doesn't have a justice knob. There isn't really a way to put that there, If the blind lady is like got her balance in her hand, and you like put the iPhone in one hand, she's not going to like do that auto-magically, right? So, if those are issues, then you've got to like engage in like technically aware political struggle. And not just in the EFF, you got the rest of the world to worry about. The Chinese, the Japanese, the Koreans, they're building the hardware. What about Foxconn? Does the EFF drop by to do on-site inspections there? No, they don't. So, it's easy to make a rhetorical gesture of that kind, but it doesn't address the realities on the ground. It's diluted. Another question? Perhaps my chauffeur can answer it. Well, come up and talk to me later. I'm here for your event. I'm like really keen to see the panels and the workshop. I will warn you, ethically speaking, I am a journalist. If you tell me something super interesting, I'll probably blog it. But that could be useful. The blog's always hungry. I love covering augmented reality. One of my favorite topics. By all means, send me email if you're doing something off the wall. I would be thrilled to publicize you. Thank you.